Hello there friends, it's Ashley here from the Loopy Lamb and theloopylamb.com, and thanks so much for stopping by the channel. It's week 19 of the 2023 Amigurumi Advent Calendar Crochet Along, and this week we're making something super for our Advent Adam and Addy dolls. We're making superhero masks. They're quick and easy, and you can make it in any of your child's favorite superhero colors. So before we crochet our superhero masks for our dolls, let's cover what materials you'll need to follow along with today's tutorial. To follow along with today's tutorial to make a superhero mask for your Amigurumi doll, you're going to need the following materials. You're going to need a worsted weight yarn in your color of preference. Today I am using the We Crochet Bravo worsted weight line in the color Cornflower. You're going to need a 3.5mm or E crochet hook, a pair of scissors, and a tapestry needle. So let me clear my workspace and we'll dive on in, making our superhero masks for our crochet dolls. To start our superhero mask for our dolls, we're going to need to create a slip knot. So we're going to take the tail end of the yarn that we're using and lay it across our palm. We're going to pin it down with our thumb to our middle finger here, and then wrap the yarn around your finger from back to front, and then cross it over itself like this. Then you're going to turn your hand, bringing your yarn across the top of your fingers, and then I'm just going to pin it down with my ring finger here. Now you can either use your crochet hook for this or your hands, and I'm just going to use my hands. I'm going to take the first strand and bring it over the second strand, and I'm going to grab that second strand and pull it out and take all of the yarn off of my fingers. Then I can pull my yarn until my knot is actually looking like a knot and it's tighter. Then I'm going to place it onto my crochet hook, pull onto the working yarn, so the long strand of yarn that's attached to the ball of yarn, and I'm going to pull that until it tightens up to my crochet hook here. And now I'm ready to start crocheting. We're going to start our superhero mask by doing a chain of 18. So we're going to yarn over and pull that yarn through the loop on our hook to create our first chain. Then we're going to yarn over, hook again, and pull that yarn through the loop on our hook to create our second chain. And we're going to continue to do this yarn over and pull through the loop on our hook to create a chain until we have 18. So I'm going to keep going here. I've got 3, 5, 9, 14, and 18. Now, if you are wanting to double check the count of your chains, you can turn your chain so the V's face towards you, and you're going to count from your knot left to right. If you're a right-handed crocheter, if you're left-handed, you're going to count from right to left. So counting those V's, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. We never count the yarn on our hook as a chain. And now we are ready to continue on and work into row 1 of our superhero mask. To start our mask, we're going to create a single crochet into the second chain from the hook. So as I had already mentioned, we never count the yarn on our hook as a chain. So starting here in this V, we're going to count over 1 and 2. I'm going to place my finger right here next to that chain so I know where I'm working, and I'm going to insert my hook into that chain. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop. So at this point, you should have 2 loops on your hook. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull that yarn through both loops on my hook, and that completes my first single crochet. And now we're going to work 1 single crochet into each remaining chain across. So I'll show you how to do that again. Working into the next chain, we're going to insert our hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop. There's 2 loops on our hook. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through both loops. And that's our second single crochet completed. And one more time, working into the next chain, yarn over and pull up a loop. You should have 2 loops on your hook. And we're going to yarn over and pull through both loops, and that's our third single crochet. So we need to work 1 single crochet into each of the chains we created, and at the end of this row you should have 17 single crochets. So if you'd like to pause your video and work the rest of your single crochets, I'll meet you back here at the end of the row to show you what we need to do in order to move on to row 2. So I just finished my last stitch of row 1, and this is what your piece should look like at this point. If you need to double count your stitches, you can turn your work towards you and count those V's across to make sure that you have 17 single crochets. So now we're going to start with row 2. To start row 2, we're going to need to do a chain of 51. And the reason we're doing another set of chains is because this set of chains will create the tie strap, or one of the tie straps, for our mask to be secured onto our doll. So we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. There's 1. Yarn over and pull up a loop. There's 2. We're going to continue to do this yarn over and pull up a loop until we have 51 chains. So if you'd like to pause your video and do this until you have 51 chains, I'll meet you back here at the end of the chain to show you our next steps. All right, so I'm back and I have my chain of 51. And before we move into our next steps, I just want to mention that if you need or want a longer or shorter strap for your mask, you can add or omit chains from the chain that we just created in order to adjust the size of your mask straps. So now that I have my chain of 51, I've turned my work so I'm working back down the chain, and we're going to do what's called a slip stitch starting in the second chain from the hook and each chain that we created. So again, we don't count the yarn on our hook as a chain. We're counting over from this first, and we've got 1 and 2. Again, putting my thumb there to mark my place, and I'm going to insert my hook into the second chain here from the hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop. We should have 2 loops on our hook. Then I'm going to pull that first loop through the second loop on my hook. And that's your first slip stitch completed. And like I said, we're going to work one of these slip stitches into each of the chains we created. So working into the next chain, yarn over and pull up a loop. Then pull the first loop through the second loop on your hook to complete your slip stitch. And I'll show you this one more time. Insert into the next chain, yarn over and pull up a loop. Pull the loop you just pulled up through the loop that was already on your hook to complete your slip stitch. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 1 slip stitch into each of those chains that you created, I'll show you what we'll be doing as soon as we're back completing our slip stitches in each of the chains we made. All right, so I'm back. I just finished all of my chains for my, working into all of the chains for my strap, I should say. And I'm back at the main part of my superhero mask. And I'm ready to continue with my instructions for row 2. So now that we have worked all those slip stitches, we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the first 2 stitches. So you can see that we've got the V's from row 1, and that's where we're going to be working into. So into that first stitch, we're going to insert our hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 to complete our first single crochet, and then we're going to work another single crochet into the next stitch. And now we're going to create our first eye hole for our mask, and we're going to do that by creating a chain of 8. So yarn over and pull through the loop until you have 8 chains. Now that I have my 8 chains, I'm going to skip 6 stitches. So I'm going to start directly counting in the stitch directly next to the last stitch I finished. So this is the last single crochet. I'm going to start counting here, and I'm counting over 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to place my finger here next to the 7th stitch because I know that's the next stitch I need to work into. So I'm going to work 1 single crochet into that 7th stitch. Right, and that's what your first eye hole should look like at this point. Don't worry if it looks a little thin, because we're going to be opening that up a bit in our next row. And now we are ready to create our next eye hole, and to make them symmetrical, we're going to need to do another chain 8. So yarn over and pull through the loop on your hook until you have 8 chains. Now we're going to skip another 6 stitches. So starting directly into in the stitch next to the last single crochet you did, you're going to count over 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, I'm placing my finger here next to that 7th stitch because I know that's where I'm working my next stitch. And now I'm going to place 1 single crochet into that 7th stitch. Okay, now we've got 2 eye holes, and then we have 1 stitch left to be worked, and we're going to work 1 single crochet into that stitch. All right, so this is what our piece should look like. We're on the wrong side right now, but this is where our eye holes are, and then we've got our long strap there. All right, so now we are ready to move on to row 3. And for row 3, we are going to need to create our second strap. So to do that, we're going to create another chain of 51. So we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. And we're going to continue that yarn over and pulling up a loop until we have 51 chains. So if you'd like to pause your video and do 51 chains, I'll meet you back here at the end of the chain to show you how we're working our second strap. All right, so we are back. I just finished my chain of 51 and I've turned my work so I'm working back down the chain. And just like we did with our first strap, we're going to do a slip stitch into each of these chains, starting in the second chain from the hook. So just as a reminder, we don't count the yarn on our hook as a chain, and I'm going to count over 1 and 2. I'm going to place my finger here next to that second chain, and then I'm going to insert my hook into that second chain. Yarn over and pull up a loop, then pull that loop through the loop that's already on your hook to complete your slip stitch. So we're going to, again, we've already done so many slip stitches, so I'm sure you don't need me to show you these all over again. So we're just going to slip stitch in each chain all the way back down to our piece. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 1 slip stitch into each of the chains you created, I'll meet you back here when we're done our slip stitching to show you how we're going to finish the instructions for row 3 and start working into the body of our mask. So I'm back. I just finished my last slip stitch into the chain we created for our strap, and we're going to start working into the body of our mask again. So to start, we're going to create a slip stitch into each of the first 2 stitches into the body of our mask. So we're old hats at slip stitching now, so just working into those first 2 stitches here, we're just going to do a slip stitch in each of the first 2 stitches. Now we're going to have a pattern that we need to follow, and this pattern is going to help us open up these eye holes a little bit so it's easier for our heroes to see. So we're going to kind of turn the chain towards us so we can see the V's, and we're going to start our pattern of 1 single crochet in the first stitch, followed by a single crochet increase into the next, working into these chains. And we're going to do this pattern 3 times. So working into the first chain, we're going to work 1 single crochet. And into the next chain, we're going to work a single crochet increase. And when we do a single crochet increase, that means we're going to place 2 single crochets into the same stitch, or in our case, chain. So working into the next chain, we're going to single crochet. There's our first, and then back into that same chain. We're doing it a second time, and that completes our single crochet increase. Now we're going to work 1 single crochet into the next stitch, or chain I should say, and a single crochet increase into the next chain. And again, that's 2 single crochets worked into the same stitch. Then we're going to work 1 single crochet into the first chain and a single crochet increase into the next. And one last reminder, that's 2 single crochets worked into the same chain. Now we're going to work 1 single crochet into the next chain here. And then we're going to slip stitch into the next 3 stitches. And in our case, for that, we're going to work a slip stitch into the chain, a slip stitch into the single crochet, and then a slip stitch into the next chain. So working into the last chain of our first eye hole, we're going to slip stitch. Bear with me here, I'm stuck on my yarn. There we go. We're going to do our slip stitch into that last chain there, slip stitch into the single crochet, and then slip stitch into the first chain of our second eye hole. And again, I'm turning my chain so the V's face me, and I'm doing my slip stitch. And now we're going to work 1 single crochet into the first stitch, and we're going to do a single crochet increase into the next. So again, those 2 single crochets into the same chain. Now we're going to work 1 single crochet into the next chain, and a single crochet increase into the next. There's 1 and 2. Now we're going to work 1 single crochet into the first stitch, and a single crochet increase into the next. Now at this point you should have 1 chain left to be worked, and we're going to place 1 single crochet into that last chain. And now we have these last 2 stitches to work in the body of our mask, and we're going to work a slip stitch into each of those stitches. Now at this point we're going to finish off our piece. So I'm going to grab my scissors, and I'm going to leave a tail of about 4 to 6 inches here and cut my yarn tail. Now at this point you can either pull the yarn all the way through with your hook, or I like to yarn over and pull up a loop and then pull that loop all the way through. Because this is such a small piece, I like to do that little slip stitch and pull it tight, and it helps to keep it a little more secure. So this is what our superhero mask looks like now. If it is kind of twisted because it is such a small piece, you could flatten it out certainly by doing a little steam block and just pinning it into place. You can use a steamer to flatten that out. But once it's on the doll, it is you don't notice any sort of floppiness at all. And then you'll just take your tapestry needle and weave in your ends. And that's it. That's how we make our superhero mask for our dolls. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. And if you did and you enjoyed it, please hit that like button and please consider subscribing to this channel. If you like free crochet patterns, please make sure that you check out my blog, theloopylamb.com. Thank you so much for watching, friends. Happy hooking, and I'll see you next time.